Hello everyone and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 261. Today is Saturday, January 19th, 2019, and I'm glad you could join me today. I think it's going to be a short one this week. I have been a monogamous Molly, so such is life. These things happen, so it shouldn't be too crazy. Luckily the dear little one is in town, but he is attending to things that haven't been attended to in 3 weeks, so whatever, it shouldn't be too crazy. So, glad you can join me today. It is pretty blustery and cold outside, so the high is supposed to be 37. Considering it was 70 yesterday, it's big system shock. And based on the fact that we had wind noise last time, we're definitely going to have it today, because I think we're having like 26 mile per hour gusts, so it's no joke. It's getting blown around. Not sure where to put my mug. So I'm having the last of my island coffee Guatemalan, and I will be back to the Ethiopian Sidamo. And the Ethiopian Sidamo is so good, so I'm looking forward to that. I decided I needed to finish it off, so I just all dumped it in my grinder. I have been enjoying using my grinder. It is makes everything so streamlined. So I have it set up so it makes exactly the right amount for AeroPress, and it just goes, and I just dump it in. So that's been really nice, having freshly ground coffee every time I make coffee, as opposed to sporadically grinding a bunch. Oh, this is going to be slightly more challenging. Okay, let's see if we can't convince it. I would think I would have been better prepared, but whatever. So, I currently have my size 2 needle shoved in this ball of yarn. So this is my breathing space. This is a Vera Valimaki pattern that I am knitting out of 2 skeins of my hand spun. So the bluish one with a lot of red in it is a combo draft of Noel and Yuletide or something like that. So it was like a pale blue, and then it was a variegated red, blue, brown, green for the other one, with a little bit of white in it too. And then this is mistletoe, so the green in this one is in here, but it's very subtle. So I'm getting really good contrast between these. And this is a Superwash Merino Silk Blend. So not safe for the washing machine, but I hand wash most of my knits anyways. So, I definitely am depleting my green ball. I am pulling from the outside so that, I don't know, we definitely have way more of this one, but I have way more yardage of this one too, so not too crazy. And I went monogamous on this week because A, I couldn't be bothered to wind some yarn, which is fine. The other thing was that I wanted to get it back in the round again, and I did manage to get it back in the round. So Breathing Space is a pattern that has stripes, but it also has some pretty significant short rows to make these diagonal stripes, and then this diagonal shape is maintained for the rest of the sweater. So I don't even know why I started knitting, but So, and I have this on way too big a cable so that I can just put it on and off at will. So I have successfully worked through the short rows. So I think when I talked to you guys last, I had recovered from my mistake. So in order for the stripes to line up, so they start on one half and then they have to line up again on this half. And my center line would have been off with my original plan because I added stitches to the front of the sweater. So I had to do a different rate of short rows in the back than the front in order to make up for this difference. So I used the correct number of stitches for the front and I used a smaller number for the back. And then once I took up the extra, or what was it, because I had 24 extra stitches on the front, once I took up the extra then I resumed the normal amount of short rows in the back, which wasn't too many more round or whatever rows after that. So I did get the halfway mark pretty good. I might be like one stitch off, but whatever. It's not like that's a big deal. I'll have to, once I'm at the end, I'll have to figure out if I'm at an even or odd number before I start doing ribbing or something. And since I do not have as much of the grain yarn, I started the stripes a little bit earlier on this, so it's a bigger block, but it still has mostly the same look anyways. So, and I definitely greatly prefer having it be green as the main color. So I'm going with it. At some point I will run out of yarn. One ramification of doing some more short rows is that the angle is at least more steep in the back, and that means that I've made more increases for my size, because every short row you do on this you end up also sort of increasing a little bit. So the breathing space, so to speak. So I do have more stitches on the needles than I think the size called for, but I'm also more sideways, so I think it ends up working out okay. But yeah, so it's a lot of stitches. They're really long rows. Like, I thought I was going to be on easy street, because you know when you're knitting a top-down sweater, and then you get the sleeves off and you're like, so many less stitches, yay! That was very brief on the sweater. I probably have more stitches on the needles now than before. But I knew that if I started another project while I was working the short rows, that I would let this languish for a little while. And now it is in autopilot knitting mode. So that's good. There's like a small number of things that I have to be mindful of while I'm knitting this, and I am not quite to the point where I do need to worry. So that's good. I don't know whether or not, or what would it be? It may be the case where I do end up taking out one of the extra cables in this just to make it a little bit more manageable and easy to knit. Maybe even makes sense to put it on the smaller length. I'll have to see how everything fits, just make it super duper. Or what would it be? Because you can, or what would it be? Like, it does fit on the massive cable, no problems, and then you can just flop it on as needed. But it does make for some more stitch management because you have to move a lot of stuff, and the connector on the Xiaogu set is like a choke point, so it is a little bit thicker there where the cables connect, so that is a place where you have to whatever, encourage some stitches across. Even though it is like, or whatever, I'm using like size 4 needles, so whatever. So it might be a little bit smoother knitting if I swap or pull the extra cable out. At some point I will start, there are only waist creases on one side, so at some point I will reach that dimension, but I don't think, I'm not there yet. Whatever. And I'm really hoping that the sweater ends up being a lot like the sweater is, where it's just a comfy, cozy, but really great looking sweater. So it's something where, what would it be? Like, you're like, I want to throw something on, and you'll be like, throw, done. So, because it's going to have a lot more ease than a lot of my other sweaters do, and I've been, or well, whatever, the boxy sort of opened my eyes to like what cool things you can do with ease and that sort of thing. So that's sort of the thought process there. So it is coming along, but I was noticing last night at knitting that I was getting a little bit bored. It isn't super duper engaging knitting at this point for me, so I probably do need to get something else going. But yeah, no, I'm really liking how it's turning out. I've put it on many times just to make sure everything's coming together nicely. And I haven't weighed it yet to see how I'm doing on the green yarn, because that's definitely going to be the limiting factor on this guy. And I don't know whether or not I will whack on some sleeves. What would it be? Or if I put some sleeves on now so I don't have to think about it and then just knit until I'm out of green. That is a definite possibility. And I suspect that I'm actually going to have enough for another project with this yarn. So that's also cool. Though I probably, when I originally spun this, probably had enough for another project too. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out so far. But it is getting to be a less exciting project. So it'll be good. It's like good for when I'm watching something, maybe not quite enough engagement for if I'm conversing with someone. Would it be? But hopefully I can get some good work done on it this week. We'll see. It turns out that I have, or what would it be? I'm doing a midweek trip to the Bay Area, so I'm going to have quite a lot of knitting time in front of me. Oh well, life's exciting like that sometimes. So, what would it be? I'm fine, but I did end up having a car accident last night, which sucked. And as I was getting ready to podcast, I discovered that I had actually damaged my wheel a little bit. So I ended up breaking this piece. Unfortunately, my spinning wheel was in the trunk, so I'm going to have to make an order to the woolery to get a replacement knob for this because I can't have my Scotch tension be broken. I do have like a piece of yarn stuffed in here because it was super duper dry and the Scotch tension wasn't working right, so I needed a bit of fluff in there to help the wood stay seated, and I think that resulted in it coming out in all of the excitement. So, mostly my car is mucked up, which is frustrating. Would it be going too fast for the conditions on the road, sadly. So, everything else seems to be fine, but it was just like, oh my gosh. So I'll have to figure that out after the podcast. It was something that I just realized when I was looking at like putting my wheel back together again. I'm like, oh crap. So it sustains the battle damage. So I have been working on the Corydale that Gia gave me. I have dyed it in shades of blues and magentas and turquoises, but it does sort of come off here. The overall effect is more of sort of a navy royal purple, so it's not coming out too far off from reality, from what I can tell on the camera. And I'm spinning this long draw, and I have 4 giant balls, but I have managed to make some progress. Sorry. It's that reverse wheel. So this is, I don't know whether or not I had started this last week, or if I was thinking about starting it. Whatever. So I received this undyed from Gia at Rhinebeck. I dyed it at yarn school on the first day. So this is all dyed with Jacquard Professional Acid dyes, which is cool. What would it be? And I dyed however many pieces of fiber I ended up having. And then I turned them into bats. I ran them through the drum carder 2 or 3 times in order to get everything nice and well mixed so that I had sort of all of the colors incorporated. I think it was 2 times. It might have been a little bit too much because there definitely are some neps in this. I believe when Gia gave it to me, it was roving, so there's that as well. It wasn't like this was top to start off with. It's super soft, super bouncy, and smells like machine oil. I'm really hoping the odor comes out because it's been through water but not soap. It seems like it needs some soap too. Whatever. So, whatever. This is a part of my Spin the Bin this year. Is an opportunity to use it, and so it has, the fiber itself is actually pretty subtle, so it's the overall impression is sort of navy-ish purple color, and then it has shots of the magenta, the teal, and there was also some undyed portions of the fiber, so there's also like a little bit of white in there as well. And I am just sort of letting the twist go in past my drafting hand. And I'm still making pretty fine yarn overall, which is cool. So that is my first ball of 4. And I'll probably do a bobbin, a ball, and then do like a 2-ply and figure out what I get. So it'll be a pretty semi-solid yarn, I think, in the end. So not entirely sure what my mission was, but I think that's what I'm gonna get. So I am working on that, so I keep making forward progress on my bin. And then what I'm doing on the side is actually getting my fleece good to go. So, well, get that. Get that out of frame. So I finished combing my balls of top, and this is the best, longest fiber in my fleece. So this is the stuff that has staple length from probably about 3.5 inches to about 1.5 inches. And it's sort of all mixed up within the ball, so the beginning of my ball is probably the 3-inch staple and the end is probably down to the 1.5. But this is the best fiber that I have, and I have I had about 50% waste. So I have something that's sort of a lavender, something that's a burgundy, and then something that's probably like a little bit more teal. So this floofy bit is my lavender, this is my burgundy, and this is my teal. Now what's interesting is so that's all ready to be hackled. I haven't started that part of the process yet. What I'm doing right now is actually combing my waist. So I put this fleece in my bin, and I pledged 2 ounces of it. And I got my fleece to the point where, what was it, like I'd gotten everything combed, but I needed a hackle, and the hackle wasn't in the mail, and so what I did was I combed my waist and got 2 ounces of fiber, and I spun a little skein. But I thought that skein ended up turning out really nice. So this is all of my waist and my combs. It is the sort of dark turquoise, burgundy, and then a lighter purple. And what I did was I mixed it all up in the bag. And what's interesting is the shade of purple that it's creating. So I would say that this is, or what would it be? So these are my mediums. It's not the top, it's not the bottom, it's probably whatever. It's sort of the middle grade. So these are going to be pieces of fiber that are from 1 inch to about 1/2 inch long. What I find interesting though, so if these are the 3 component colors, and then I stick this one in the middle, it is darker than this one, but most of the color coming across is this. When I'm looking at this one, I do maybe see a little bit more burgundy, and of the blue, very little. But I guess I haven't been doing a lot of comparison between these more pure ones versus what I'm sort of making as the mediums. But I was very surprised at what color it was turning out to be. So there's definitely, what would it be? One thing about combing fine wool is that, in any, or even like drum carding fine wool and stuff like that, is that the colors do end up blending together very well. So the longer the staple, the maybe more coarser the wool is, the more you can distinctly see each component color that the fiber is made up of. But these are turning out to be actually a very consistent color so far, which is interesting. I find it all the whole process to be rather fascinating. But I think that what this means is that this particular shade is going to be sort of what the overall effect's going to be when I'm done hackling the top. So these are my mediums. I've made a couple of them, and it is a much more laborious process than making the top. One thing is that, what would it be? So we're still talking a pretty decent staple length still. This is the stuff that didn't come apart. This is the stuff that came off my combs that I set aside. So this is sort of my active comb right now. So it's a little bit neater. And then this is the one that I'm taking stuff off of, and you can see how it's like a bit log jammed. So there's places where there's just like no wool at all. As I sort of go through, so this side doesn't have too much of the short crap in it, but this one has quite a lot of it. So the first couple passes that I do with my combs are getting rid of the really, really short stuff. And then subsequent rounds I sort of dwindle to the point where I'm not really taking much out, and that's when I pull one of my mediums off. So, but it's definitely a lot more work to comb this because it's so much shorter. It's a lot more work because I have to like try to keep everything contained. But it is turning out to be really nice. I'm going to do a little bit of combing here. So it's short, so not a lot is coming with each pass. And I have to be a little bit careful, at least initially, because it definitely does want to work itself up off of the comb itself. So nothing too crazy, and it's really funny. So I do not comb on my couch. Like, this would just, if I screwed up, I would really, really destroy the leather pretty bad, and I don't want to do whatever. I don't want to pay for that. So I actually sit on my fireplace and comb, so it's a little bit uncomfortable because my fireplace is brick and can actually burn logs. Whatever, it's in the living room, it's close by, it's far enough away from my couch that I don't think I'm going to screw anything up. And then I'll be like watching podcasts or shows or something like that while I'm doing this. It's slow. It is, it's a little bit uneven how it enters the combs, just because everything is so much shorter. And what would it be? At some point there sort of reaches, like if it's all like riding up and off, at some point it'd just be like, well, that part of the fiber is like half an inch long and I probably don't need it. So I'll end up picking it off and putting it in with the really, really legitimately, this is waste. And then I already have a bag of that from the first third that I ended up processing. So this is my second third. So I think once I'm done, combing through all of my waste a second time, that will be the point at which I take all of that secondary waste, so that really, really short stuff, and then put it in with the first batch. It's very soft, it's very fluffy, and it is extremely short. What ends up coming off sort of after that round of combing. But it's, what would it be? It's definitely a lot more work to comb the waist. But I was really happy with what I ended up creating with it, so that will probably be what I end up doing. And I will probably use my hackle waist as sort of a test drive for how I want to spin it, or spin the project overall. So I have about an ounce of hackle waste from my first third of the fiber. I assume I'll probably have about an ounce with the other part as well. And we can go from there. So shouldn't be too crazy. But it's just hilarious. Like I just have like so much on this one part of the comb. It's like the other parts just didn't even want to like catch at all. So it's that's what I've been doing actually for as long as I can tolerate it. I can do maybe like 1 or 2 balls a night, and then I'm like, okay, done. I might have done 3 one night, but like, it hurt, like, whatever. It's a lot like work. Yeah. So it's been an interesting process. And interesting to sort of have everything come together. I feel a little bit better now that I realize that the overall impression of the color is turning out to be sort of a darker purple, because I did want a richer purple color after the first round. So the first round of dyeing, I ended up using only Wilton's Violet, and the color that I ended up getting was pretty pale. And you know me, I really like my rich saturated colors. It's true. So I really do like my rich saturated colors. I'll just put that in at the waist. And it just wasn't that, and the overall impression of the skein that I created from the waist was very pale. It was like I didn't get complete dye penetration into the locks when I dyed them initially. So the second round I was putting in more dark colors, and I think I did succeed in making a richer, more Molly, Julie appropriate purple. And these are from the sort of medium gray portion of my fleece. So I have heard that you can get a better jewel tone if you start with a gray base. So I think it's not too bad. It definitely helps like being under the studio lights as well. So the lighting in my living room isn't super duper. It's very yellow, and the lights are very far away from me because the ceiling is super duper tall. So yeah. So at this point, everything is so short and nothing's really coming off my comb, so that it's probably safe to say. So you can see all sorts of little bits of crap and all of the short stuff. And so that is a lot of what's in my bag of waste. So this is gonna need a few more rounds before it's ready to get pulled, but not too bad. My waist is whatever, super duper short. It's very soft. It doesn't feel bad, but it is super duper short. And actually it's so short, some of this waist is so short that like as I'm combing it, like little balls and fluff are just flying off. So there's like this little light patina of fiber and little nappy balls and stuff that's just sort of around the fireplace because apparently I have forcibly expelled it from my combs. I don't know. So, when I'm done here, I'll end up needing to sort of gather everything back together again, and then take anything that's sort of fallen on the ground and scoop it up and then put it in with the waste. Yeah. And then maybe try to avoid the little hay bits that are there too. So going through the waste again, there definitely is some of whatever, the veg matter that ended up getting caught behind my combs, and now I'm recombing again. So, whatever. But if my first pass was only taking, 50% of the fiber was good enough to be a part of the main top. My waist is more like 2/3 waist and 1/3 medium. So I believe that every additional round of combing is actually going to take out more than the previous round. So that's also another interesting thing that I hadn't realized when I started. But early on, when combing my waist, I measured the ratio of how much stuff I was tossing to how many little balls I had, and it was 2 parts to 1. So it's definitely going to take me a little bit to get through that tub. So whatever, it's a part of the process, and then once I'm done going through the tub, then I'll start combing the third part of the fleece. It would be nice to get all of the combing done before the big move, but who knows, I might end up being too busy to get through it all. But I think the sooner I can get it to spinnable fiber, the better it's going to be. And sort of irrotary. So that's sort of why I'm working this project as my spinning project right now, is so that I have spinning going but then I also have like this fiber prep thing going on in the background about equal proportions. So that's why I'm showing you the fiber prep on the podcast, because it is a decent part of the fiber fun that I've been working on. And hopefully it's an interesting process to look and see. I was talking with one of the women in the knit group, so she does not want to spin. But she's a very curious mind, so she generally has lots of questions for me about spinning and how the wheel works, and I was explaining the process of the fiber for this, and what would be the case where there is the option of spinning it right from the sheep in the grease, but then there are so many other options that you can take part in, so many different places where you can insert, what would it be, color, organization. There's so many places that you can intersect when you're dealing with fiber before it even becomes something like yarn, and sort of working through those choices and whether or not it's making something that makes you happy. And I hope to learn a lot more. in April I'm going to be taking 2 classes with Judith McKenzie. Whether I'm living in Dallas or not. What would it be? I have a place to crash if I'm not living in Dallas. So one of them will be about handling luxury fibers. The other class is about color management. So that will be super interesting. So it'll be interesting, for example, to maybe learn a little bit more about, say, for example, the process of what I'm doing here, or the process that I did here. And what would it be? Like I have, oh, it is well out of reach, but like I, for example, keep some solid balls of fiber in my stash in sort of a rainbow color. And I'm hoping, I believe that one of the things that she'll be covering in the color and shade class will be how to take some of that in order to make something different, or sort of like at what point in the process is it, or what would it be, at what point in the process does it make sense to dye, and how much should I process it after it's dyed, and that sort of thing. So, because like right now, what I'm doing is doing it with vague plans, colors I like, and I just have to accept what I get. It would be cool to maybe know a little bit more about what I'm going to make when I start. Because I was hoping to make subtle color, but maybe I didn't succeed, or it'd be the case like even like, because like she's a big proponent of like combo drafting, so it'd just be the case where you're like, could I have done the same thing with this stuff, so instead of running it through the hackle, combo draft to make it a more complicated color, or that sort of thing. So there is much that I could learn from her. So whatever, as long as she's teaching classes, she's getting my dollars. So hopefully I will have better knowledge. Would it be? This is based on like partial things, incomplete. What would be ideas that I got from being in the class or being around other spinners and interacting with them. So shouldn't be too crazy. And then I have to laugh a little bit because I thought it was going to be a short episode this week, but apparently I had a lot to say. Whatever. As long as it's below an hour, it's probably not too crazy. Would it be personally, I can't do a 2-hour podcast. I can't watch a podcast that is regularly 2 hours, if that makes any sense. I would say, like, what would it be? So I try to make sure I do that myself. And normally it's like 30 minutes, but whatever. It's not like I'm trying to be exactly 30 minutes. So, I had mentioned last week I wasn't recording this week, and then I did. I will be recording next week. That shouldn't be a big deal. I will probably be missing the first week in February. I'll have to decide whether or not or what would it be? I'll probably be missing the first week of February. I will be, but I will be okay for the second, probably. Yeah, that's probably what would it be? So many things in flux. So, I guess that's nice. and hopefully I'll have a lot to show because I will not be at work quite as much. I will be less responsible. And now my coffee is all gone, so we really have to end it. So, I should check though. I neglected to check last week about nope. I forgot to check on the results of the poll. Okay. So, sorry about that, guys. Well, it appears, I don't know. So, I voted. Jose's voted. No one else has voted. So, does that mean that we are doing a itty bitty knit the precious knit along? What would it be? Be like precious. So I will have to figure out what it'd be. So no one's commenting. then what would it be? I am not sure. So it might just be that we end up doing it just between the two of us, Jose. I know what I want to knit. I want to wind on my Woolfolk far and make something that feels like, what would it be? Doing something naughty to kittens. That's what that yarn feels like. It's criminal. So, I suppose that if I'm actually going to participate in the SSK teacher knit along, then I should cast that project on. So, there's that too. But that's what we both voted for, was knitting the precious. So, would it be, let me know in the episode thread, either on YouTube or Ravelry, if you would like to do that. Considering it's mid-January now, I'm thinking a February to beginning of February to end of April time frame makes sense. And obviously, as you know, all of my knit-alongs are super duper chill affairs. So comment below about knit the precious. So shouldn't be too crazy. So with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So take care, guys. Bye-bye.